Something is changing. Maybe you've already felt it. Maybe it's showing up as restlessness. Maybe it's showing up as a desire to leave something behind. Or maybe it's that strange feeling that the life you've been living no longer fits the person you're becoming. And here's the interesting part. You're not imagining it. June 2026 is one of those rare months that sits between two worlds. One chapter is ending. Another is quietly beginning. For some people, this month will bring healing. For others, opportunities. For others, difficult but necessary truths. But almost everyone will be asked the same question. What are you ready to leave behind so you can move forward? Because by the time June is over, many of the energies that have shaped the first half of 2026 will be changing. And some of the choices you make this month may influence the rest of your year. So if June has felt emotional, confusing, hopeful, or strangely important, there's a reason for that. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to Message from the Sky. If you're new here, I'm so happy you found us. We're going to explore the deeper story unfolding in the sky. We'll talk about the major planetary movements, the most important astrological events, the opportunities, the challenges, the spiritual lessons, and of course, we'll go through all 12 zodiac signs in detail. This is not a quick forecast. Think of it as our cosmic roadmap for the month, a chance to step back from the noise of everyday life and understand the bigger patterns at work. Because astrology isn't here to control your future. It's here to help you understand the timing of your life, to help you recognize opportunities when they appear, to help you navigate challenges with more awareness, and sometimes, to remind you that you're not as lost as you think you are. Now, before we begin, I want you to listen to 3 signs: your sun sign, your moon sign, and especially your rising sign. Your rising sign often tells the story of external events. Your moon sign reveals your emotional experience. And your sun sign shows where your personal growth is happening. If you know all 3, you'll get a much more complete picture of the month ahead. And I encourage you to stay until the end of the video. Not because every prediction will apply to everyone, but because June is unfolding like a story. Each planetary movement builds on the one before it. Each event prepares us for what comes next. And by the time we reach the end of the month, we arrive at one of the most important energetic shifts of 2026. A shift that could influence the next 12 months of your life. So grab your tea, take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's explore what the universe has planned for June 2026. Now that we've set the stage, let's talk about the bigger story unfolding in June 2026. Because this month isn't just about one transit. It isn't just about one lucky day. And it isn't just about Mercury retrograde. June is a month of transition. A bridge between emotional growth and personal expression. A bridge between what has nurtured us and what now wants to emerge through us. If I had to describe June in one sentence, it would be this. June is the month where many people begin realizing they can't go back to who they used to be. Something is changing, and the sky reflects that perfectly. Throughout much of the month, we have a strong emphasis on Cancer energy. Cancer is often misunderstood. People hear Cancer and immediately think emotions. And yes, Cancer is deeply emotional, but Cancer is also about protection, safety, belonging, home, family, roots. It's about the places, people, and experiences that make us feel secure. Cancer asks a very simple question. What truly nourishes you? Not what impresses other people. Not what looks successful from the outside. Not what society tells you to want. What genuinely feeds your soul? This question becomes incredibly important because several planets are activating Cancer energy throughout June. Mercury enters Cancer at the very beginning of the month, and almost immediately, conversations become more personal. People speak from the heart. Old memories may resurface. Family discussions become more important. You may find yourself reflecting on the past more than usual. You may suddenly remember dreams you once had, promises you made to yourself, parts of yourself that you've neglected. Cancer energy often works like that. It helps us reconnect with what matters. But Mercury in Cancer isn't only about emotions. It's also about intuition. Throughout June, pay attention to your instincts. Pay attention to subtle feelings. Pay attention to those moments when something simply feels right or feels wrong. Not everything needs to be analyzed logically. Some things need to be felt, and June asks us to trust that inner wisdom a little more. At the same time, Venus begins the month in Cancer. Venus governs love, relationships, pleasure, beauty, money. And while Venus moves through Cancer, many people become more sentimental. You may find yourself missing certain people, thinking about old friendships, looking through photographs, wanting deeper emotional connections rather than superficial interactions. Love becomes less about excitement and more about emotional safety. Many people will realize this month that the relationships they truly value are the ones where they can be completely themselves, where they don't have to perform, where they don't have to prove anything, where they simply feel accepted. And then we arrive at one of the most beautiful moments of the month, June 9th, the meeting of Venus and Jupiter in Cancer. This is widely considered one of the most supportive alignments of the entire year. Whenever Venus and Jupiter come together, life tends to soften. Opportunities appear more easy. People become more generous. Relationships often improve. Support arrives from unexpected places. And because this conjunction occurs in Cancer, the blessings often come through emotional connections, family, home, close friendships, acts of kindness, moments that remind us we're not alone. Now, this doesn't mean everyone wins the lottery. Astrology rarely works that way. But it can feel like life opens a window. A moment where hope becomes easier. A moment where healing becomes possible. A moment where the heart feels a little lighter. So if you have something important to begin, a relationship to nurture, or gratitude to express, the days around June 9th carry beautiful energy. But June isn't only about comfort. There are also important challenges. Around June 10th through June 13th, the atmosphere becomes more complicated. Mercury forms a difficult aspect to Saturn. Venus forms a challenging aspect to Chiron. And suddenly, old insecurities may appear. Communication can feel heavy. Some people may experience disappointment. Others may revisit old wounds related to love, rejection, self-worth, or belonging. If that happens, remember something important. Healing doesn't always feel comfortable. Sometimes healing begins when something we thought was resolved suddenly asks for our attention one final time. Don't assume these feelings mean you're moving backward. Often they're signs that you're finally ready to move beyond them. Then, on June 15th, we experience the new moon in Gemini. This new moon feels completely different from the emotional Cancer energy surrounding it. Gemini wants movement, ideas, learning, conversations, curiosity, connections. This is one of the best moments of the month to ask yourself, what new story do I want to tell? What new idea deserves my attention? What conversation needs to happen? What possibilities have I ignored because I assumed they were impossible? Gemini reminds us that one conversation can change a life. One idea can change a career. One decision can change a future. Never underestimate small beginnings. Sometimes they become the most important chapters of our lives. And then, another major shift arrives. On June 19th, Chiron enters Taurus. This is significant because Chiron represents healing, and Taurus governs security, money, resources, the physical world. For years to come, many people will begin a deeper healing journey around what they truly value, not only financially, but emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. Questions like, what am I worth? What do I deserve? Why do I keep settling for less? These themes become increasingly important, and for some people, June marks the beginning of that process. A few days later, we reach the summer solstice, one of the most powerful points of the year. The sun enters Cancer. The light reaches its peak in the northern hemisphere, and symbolically, we're reminded to pause, to reflect, to reconnect with ourselves, to ask where our energy has been going, and whether it's supporting the life we truly want. As we move toward the end of the month, the atmosphere changes again, slowly, but unmistakably. Venus has entered Leo, Mars prepares to leave Taurus, and Jupiter approaches one of its biggest shifts of the year. After spending a year moving through Cancer, Jupiter enters Leo on June 30th, and this is huge, because Jupiter changes signs only once each year. When Jupiter enters Leo, the collective focus shifts. Less attention goes toward protection. More attention goes toward expression, creativity, leadership, confidence, talent, joy, visibility. The universe begins asking a new question. What gifts were you born to share? And finally, on June 29th, Mercury stations retrograde, and on June 30th, we experience the strawberry full moon. The final days of June feel incredibly symbolic. One chapter ending, another beginning. Mercury asks us to slow down, review, reflect, reconsider. The full moon reveals what has reached completion, and Jupiter steps into an entirely new sign. It's almost as if the universe pauses for a moment, looks back at everything we've learned, and then quietly opens a new door. And that brings us to the zodiac signs. Let's see how these powerful June energies may be showing up in your life personally. Remember to listen to your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign, and keep a notebook nearby. You may hear a message that stays with you long after this month is over. Let's begin with Aries. Aries, June feels like a bridge between your inner world and your outer world. For much of this month, life may not be asking you to move faster. In fact, it may be asking you to slow down, to reconnect with yourself, to reconnect with your roots, to reconnect with the people and places that make you feel safe. And for many Aries, that's unusual, because you're often focused on the next challenge, the next goal, the next mountain to climb. But June has a different lesson. Before the universe asks you to shine, it wants you to strengthen your foundation. Think of a tree. The stronger the roots, the higher the branches can grow. And that's exactly what June is doing for you. Building the roots before the expansion. One of the biggest stories of this month is happening in your first house of identity. Saturn and Neptune are both moving through Aries, and this combination is fascinating. Because Saturn wants structure, responsibility, discipline, commitment. Neptune wants dreams, vision, faith, possibility. One planet asks, what's realistic? The other asks, what's possible? And throughout June, you're learning how to bring those two worlds together. Some Aries may be reinventing themselves. Some may be questioning old goals. Some may be realizing they've outgrown a version of themselves that once felt comfortable. And if you've felt a little uncertain recently, that doesn't necessarily mean you're lost. Sometimes uncertainty appears because you're standing between who you were and who you're becoming. The old identity no longer fits. The new identity isn't fully formed yet, and June places you right in the middle of that transformation. Now let's talk about where most of the emotional energy is flowing this month. Your fourth house, the house of home, family, roots, private life, emotional security. For much of June, Mercury, Venus, and Jupiter are all activating this area of your chart. This is one of the strongest themes of the month for you, and it may show up in many different ways. Some Aries may be moving, renovating, spending more time with family, reconnecting with relatives, healing family relationships, creating a more peaceful home environment, or simply realizing that success means very little if you don't feel emotionally supported. This month asks you to define what home truly means, And for some Aries, the answer may surprise you. Home is not always a place. Sometimes it's a person. Sometimes it's a feeling. Sometimes it's the version of yourself that finally feels at peace. Now let's talk about June 9th, because this is one of the most beautiful dates of the month. Venus and Jupiter meet in Cancer. For Aries, this happens in your 4th house. And honestly, this energy feels like a blessing. You may receive support from family, good news related to your home, a healing conversation, a moment of emotional closeness, or simply a feeling that life is becoming a little softer, a little kinder, a little more generous. If you've been carrying emotional burdens, this energy may help lighten the load. And if you've been wondering whether things can improve, this transit reminds you that they absolutely can. Now, that doesn't mean every problem disappears overnight, but it does create a window of opportunity, a chance to heal, a chance to reconnect, a chance to open your heart. And sometimes that's all we need. Around the middle of the month, another important shift begins. Venus moves into Leo on June 13th, and suddenly the energy changes. The focus moves from your 4th house into your 5th house. And Aries, this is where things start becoming exciting. The 5th house governs creativity, joy, romance, passion, self-expression, children, talent, and the things that make you feel truly alive. You may notice yourself becoming more confident, more playful, more visible, more willing to take risks. If you've been hiding your talents, June starts encouraging you to share them. If you've been waiting for permission to express yourself, this is your permission. The universe is reminding you that your creativity matters, your voice matters, your gifts matter. For those looking for love, the second half of June carries significantly more romantic energy. Relationships may feel warmer, more passionate, more expressive, and if you're already in a relationship, this can be a wonderful period for reconnecting through fun, laughter, and shared experiences. Now let's talk about finances and self, because there is another important story unfolding here. Mars continues moving through your 2nd house for most of the month. This area governs money, resources, values, security, and your relationship with abundance. Mars here gives you determination. It helps you focus on practical goals. It encourages steady progress rather than impulsive decisions. This isn't necessarily the month for reckless risks. It's the month for building something sustainable, brick by brick, step by step, and then something even more important happens. On June 19th, Chiron enters Taurus, beginning a long healing journey through your 2nd house. Now Chiron works differently than most planets. It doesn't simply bring events. It brings awareness, healing, growth, and over the coming years, many Aries will begin healing deep wounds connected to questions like, am I enough? Do I deserve success? Why do I doubt myself? Why do I settle for less than I deserve? These themes may gradually emerge, not to hurt you, but to help you reclaim your value. Because one of the greatest lessons Chiron teaches is this: your worth was never something you had to earn. It's something you've always possessed. Now let's shift our attention to your career, because there is strong support for professional progress this month, especially during the first week of June. You may experience unusual clarity. Decisions that once felt confusing may suddenly become obvious. The path ahead may reveal itself more clearly. And around June 2nd, the connection between the Sun and Saturn helps you focus on long-term goals. This is excellent energy for planning, strategizing, organizing, and building something that lasts. Not everything needs immediate results. Some of the most important achievements begin with patient preparation. Then, around June 19th, Mercury connects with Mars, and this gives you something Aries naturally loves: momentum, confidence, the ability to communicate your ideas effectively. If you need to negotiate, present, interview, lead, or advocate for yourself. This energy can be incredibly helpful. People are more likely to hear what you're trying to say, and you're more likely to say it with confidence. Spiritually, June asks you to release outdated expectations. This becomes especially clear around the new moon in Gemini on June 15th. This new moon activates your communication sector, your thinking, your learning, your perspective, and it encourages you to write a new story about yourself. Sometimes growth doesn't begin with action. Sometimes it begins with a new belief, a new conversation, a new way of seeing yourself. Pay attention to ideas that arrive around this time. Some may become much more important than they initially appear. Then we arrive at June 21st, one of the most healing days of the month. The sun forms a supportive connection with Chiron, helping you reconnect with your strength, your resilience, and your capacity to heal. This is beautiful energy for self-care, forgiveness, reflection, and recognizing how far you've already come. Don't underestimate your progress. You've survived challenges that once felt impossible, and that's worth acknowledging. As June moves toward its final days, the pace begins to accelerate. Mars enters Gemini on June 28th, bringing more mental energy, more curiosity, more movement. You may suddenly feel eager to learn, travel, network, connect, or explore new ideas. Your mind becomes busier, but also more inspired. Then, on June 29th, Mercury stations retrograde, and this is your reminder not to rush. Slow down, double-check important details, back up important files, review plans carefully. Mercury retrograde isn't here to punish you. It's here to help you notice what you've missed. Use the final days of June for reflection rather than major new commitments. And finally, we arrive at one of the biggest astrological events of the entire year. June 30th, Jupiter enters Leo and Aries. This is wonderful news. For the next 12 months, Jupiter begins activating your 5th house, the house of joy, creativity, romance, self-expression, talent, and personal fulfillment. A new chapter is beginning, one where life asks you to take up more space, to trust your gift, to believe in yourself, to share what only you can share. This is not a year for hiding. This is a year for creating, for expressing, for living more fully. And while June begins by asking you to strengthen your roots, it ends by reminding you that you were never meant to stay underground forever. You were meant to grow. You were meant to bloom. And this month is helping you prepare for exactly that. Now let's move to Taurus.